Welcome back to Manivil. We have a video here with a girl I follow quite a lot on YouTube. A girl who calls herself Pearl or Pearly Things. And recently she showed this video and commented on it. And her video is called 10 Minutes of Broke Single Moms Refusing to Accept Accountability. And there's just a few things that might illuminate you, because a lot of what is one of the things that I have tried to pinpoint in my recent series of my philosophy is that when we get to the point where I start to, communicationology, as I call it, right? What is usually going on when there's communication is not an attempt to establish objectivity, but everything else but that. It's trying to manipulate other people's abstractions, in particular their emotions and desires and their fears, right? Sense and sensibility, fear and desire, right? It's the first movie by Stanley Kubrick was called Fear and Desire. It was not called objectivity, right? So, and it goes to show that a lot of one of the reasons why philosophy is difficult, because when you start to philosophize, you have lived for quite a long time, usually, right? And because you've lived for a long time, you have been trained not to want or desire to do good philosophy. In fact, you have been so confused by all this manipulation of your lingo channel, as I call it, since you were a child. That lingo channel is a direct access to your mind, so to say, right? To your abstractions and your emotions and so on. And they have been pounding on those since you were a child, since you were in a period when you were unable to fight against it and be critical and skeptical about it, right? And there's also a lot of incentives like survival and all these things, right? What can I get compared to what does it cost, right? So in a sense, your childhood is another term for conspiracy. Childhood is the period of time before you're fully developed, when all the other people who consider themselves fully developed while still having been manipulated, as far as the eye can see, during their own childhood, they try to inflict themselves on you until you become fully developed, right? So if human beings didn't need 20 years to, let's just round it and say 20 years to fully develop, but were sort of mentally ready within 3 months, just for the sake of argument, right? The human beings would be totally different. There's a lot of shit that people do now that wouldn't happen. But because we have this long period where it takes us 20 years to fully develop our brain, everybody tries to destroy that ability, or for you to arrive at a point after those 20 years where you are actually allowed to fully develop, because those other people who went through this are not fully developed, and they don't want you to, whether they understand it or not. They don't want you to arrive at fully functional human brain as it is born. It has to be fucking forced. Look through history, or what remnant a description we have, or what have prior happened and what is still happening. Everything seems to be about controlling children, right? So one of the things that children learn is to, and in particular women, I would say, girls and women, is that it's very particular to women actually, is describing something without actually stating what it is, right? It's sort of a, let's say, a passive aggressive approach to lingo, right? Appealing to something but it's like only stating sort of half of it, and you by extension add the other half of understanding. That's a kind of manipulation, right? So what is generally used for this to work is a euphemism, by saying something different that alludes to the same thing. It's changing the terms or using a different terms to say the same thing, right? And sometimes I do that also, of course, with the incentive of creating nuances in the language, not to manipulate, right? You could discuss what manipulation is, but as one famous Chinese philosopher, I think he was Chinese, Confucius, as his Confucius, I think was the more correct name, right? He has supposedly stated that the beginning of all philosophy is calling things by their right name, right? So by not calling things by the right name, you might actually be able to get some understanding, but a skewed understanding where there's some part of that understanding that you sort of jump over without realizing that you're taking that jump, or accepting some inherent built-in stuff that is not actually supposed to be literally understood that way, right? Okay, so let's jump into the video here.
9,000 and getting you a new man. You can do it. I believe in you. You're still pretty. What up, guys? Welcome to my reaction series. Today, we are talking about how single mothers are still broke. Yes. As you guys know, a lot of women leave the father of their children and think financially they'll be all right, but we don't really know how to do math like that. So, all right, let's see.
You know, I'm sitting at the ATM about to make my house payment after I just worked in 90 plus degree weather, shitty, dirty fucking warehouse, and got paid not even $700 for the week after taxes and everything. And now I got to give all of it to the ATM for my house payment. I really don't want to deposit this. I really don't feel like giving over all of my money and being broke again for another week. What gets me even more pissed off is I'm a single mom. Okay, 2 baby daddies, 3 kids that I have. None of them pay a fucking dime, never have. This.
Okay, so there you have a situation, right? First of all, it's kind of incredible the kind of delusional, how delusional some women are about what is going on. And that goes for men also. It's general. It's how delusional people are of what is actually going on, right? I think that if it wasn't for democracy, if it wasn't for computers, this system would have crashed a long time ago. Oh, no, we need democracy and we need women voting, right? So, but if we hadn't had computers and a fucked up monetary system, this thing would have crashed a long time ago, right? But because of women voting, and let's just say voting in itself, because if men get the vote, at some point, women will get the vote. So you could, the chicken and egg thing, right? So It's not to particular pinpoint women as such. This is just the stage we're in at the moment. For the last 100 years or so, women have been able to vote for what they want. This has not happened before, right? And generally, in all the thousands of years before this point, there have been low taxes. Men have sort of said, okay, there are a few things it makes sense that men are sort of forced to pay in order to get police and courts and whatever. There's sort of a night watcher kind of state, right? Very, very low taxes, right? You know, the American Revolution arrived because of a 2% tea tax, or what the fuck, right? The Tea Party. 2% was too much for them, and then they fucking went crazy, right? What do we have now? 50, 60, 70%, depending on how much you include in it, with fees and you know, whatever, right? Inflation and so what is going on is that women are allowing to hand over their freedom, some of their freedom, to get some other kind of freedom, right? And what you're hearing here, when this woman says, I have 3 children with 2 baby daddies, I don't know where this term baby daddies come from, right? But that's not another euphemism, right? A baby daddy is another term for one of those men I screwed over, right? But it's not baby daddies. It sounds more nice, right? So it's the sort of lingo area, lingo country we're in here. Euphemism. She had the freedom to destroy her family. Let's call it family, because that's a term that has been used for ages, right? So she could get control of something, more freedom. But she gave that control to those who have to keep the family separated. And the only thing that can keep a man away from his child and his wife is violence, or the threat of violence. If that threat isn't there, she will have to leave alone and let him have the children. So what she has allowed is government coming with the threat of violence to perpetually keep these families apart. And she's deep into it because she needs to have 2 men kept away from their children that she apparently has to be in control of. And she thought that this entity called government, who gave her this supposed freedom, is going to take care of her. So she has 2 real men who actually wanted, apparently, to have a family with her, that she rejected. A third entity called government is acting as a daddy for her, or a kind of family patriarch, right? And has to protect her. And she thought that she would get this kind of freedom, yeah, for a while, until they say, fuck you, right? You're dependent on us now. You're dependent on our guns, right? You are too stupid. You thought this was freedom. No, it wasn't. It looked like freedom, but it's a kind of slavery where you are now tying yourself to a government and being dependent on it. And this government has made you dependent as a woman in order to perpetually having to use the threat of violence to keep these 2 daddies away from their babies, right? So you have placed yourself in a situation where you have enslaved everybody of these afflicted people, yourself included, yourself, your 3 children, and these 2 men. And those with the guns have the power because you don't have the guns to make them go away now, right? You've become dependent because if the government goes away, who's going to keep your family split up, right? Those men might say, oh, now the government is gone. I think I want to be with my children. So you have to keep the government now, right? and they are inflating your economy. So you will have less and less and less, right? And you will get more and more desperate, and you will probably want more and more and more government, right? At some point you will say, I don't care. I don't care if men are treated as slaves to this system. I want my protection, right? For my children, my 3 children. Oh, these toxic men. Oh, right? That's what you don't understand. Because you were brainwashed into feminism for 20 years before you had a functional brain, and now it can't function, right?
State never made them either. So
Okay, well, that's just an L. You should have got pregnant by someone richer. If you have 3 baby daddies, I mean, that's just not intelligent on your part. You really should have tried to get pregnant by someone with a little bit more going on.
here I am scraping just to put gas in the car and to make it week to week. Scraping to just put a tiny bit of food in the house because everything's fucking outrageous. And they're buying new cars, doing whatever the fuck they're doing, living life, not worrying about the kids. It's how we live as single parents. I wish I could just be like, no, I'm not fucking paying it. He should pay it because it's housing his fucking kids. I don't care. Split it between the fucking both of them for all I give a fuck. Since you don't pay child support, maybe you should pay for them to live in a fucking house. You know what? That should be it. Since men across 90+ degree weather.
There was a particular aspect I missed here because I'm screwing around with both the StreamYard and this video. Let me wind back a bit and take it again here, right?
Shitty, dirty fucking warehouse and got paid not even $700 for the week after taxes and everything. And now I got to give all of it to the ATM for my house payment. I really don't want to deposit this. I really don't feel like giving over all of my money and being broke again for another week.
Well, she asked for it. Well, how does she think the things work? How the world works? What kind of fantasy is she living in? That it's like that 2 men who willingly apparently wanted to start a family, and then there were 2 parents doing this. So she wanted to have the children, but she wanted to get rid of one of the parts who takes care of the children, which the children need to grow up and become functional human beings, and so on. They need it for their emotions, and need it for feeling secure, and there's a family, all that. How does she think that how the world works? And now she is sort of, I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay this money. Well, how does she think that the men, these so-called baby daddies of her, how does she think that they feel? But she has no empathy for them, right? It's all about her.
What gets me even more pissed off is I'm a single mom. Okay, 2 baby daddies, 3 kids that I have. None of them pay a fucking.
Yeah, and it's her. She has children. She has 3 children, and she has 2 baby daddies. It's like I have 2 baby daddies. You only have 1 baby daddy, right? It's like they are some kind of object. Like, I have 2 cows. Yeah, I get milk from these cows. Well, I have 2 baby daddies, and I'm extracting money from them, right?
Dime, never have. The state never made them either. So
Okay, well, that's just
There it was. There it was. That was this magical euphemism, right? The state don't make them, right? She's not going to tell you what is actually going on, but deep down, I suspect that she understands it. she's just covering it up. Because, and this goes for everywhere. This is the big fucking elephant in the room, right? And nobody says exactly what is going on. But philosophy begins with calling things by the right name, right? If you're not calling things by the right name, or you identify what things are involved in what you're describing, we are talking past each other, or at least there's some manipulation going on from one of the sides. Call things by the right name. Make them. I would like to understand what that actually means. Make them? What does that mean? Somebody enlighten me on this, right? What does it mean to make them? Is this the old an offer he can't refuse, right? Euphemism? That's why this Godfather quote is so famous, because it is a euphemism. It's saying things without actually saying it. You have to connect the dots, right? She's saying, I want the government to threaten these men to give me what I want. And the threat involves the threat of murder, right? It's violence and control, and ultimately these men has to be killed if they don't do it. But she expects that they don't want to be killed. So they'd rather pay up than die on that hill, right? She has no fucking empathy for any of these men.
Just an L. You should have got pregnant by someone richer. If you have 3 baby daddies, I mean, that's.
And also, Pearl just jumps over this, right? She doesn't scrutinize. What does she mean by this? Make them. She jumps in. Well, you should have found somebody richer to give you money then, right? If you want baby daddies, go for some rich baby daddies, right? Jeff Bezos or something like that, so you can get millions using the government, right? Yeah, it's kind of sarcastic said, but what Pearl doesn't jump into is, hey, what does she actually mean by this? Make them pay, right? Well, if I'm made to pay, would it be fair to call that a payment? If I'm walking on the street and somebody comes up to me and say, I have a gun under my jacket here, right? You see the balls here. I would like you to give me $100 or $1,000 or whatever, euros. And you say, okay, fair enough. Here's 1,000 euros. Maybe you don't say fair enough. Okay, give the $1,000. Would you be called that paying? Right? I'm sure that the justice system for the little people is that if they tried to do that to one of the other slaves out here, right, it would be called criminal. But when she says it, it's apparently okay, and nobody bats an eye. Nobody reacts and say, hey, whoa, what do you mean by make them? Well, this is skating over the actual problem. The actual problem is that you think that you can get more freedom by appealing to government. What you will end up is, yeah, it might look in the moment like you're having freedom, but down the line, you will be enslaved, and you will enslave everybody else around you who were forced to participate in this giving you a freedom, so to say, right?
Just not intelligent on your part. You really should have tried to get pregnant by someone with a little bit more going on.
Here I am scraping just to put gas in the car and to make it weak. Scraping to just put a tiny bit of food in the house because everything's fucking outrageous. And they're buying new cars, doing whatever the fuck they're doing, living life, not worrying about the kids. It's how we live as single parents. I wish I could just be like, no, I'm not fucking paying it.
Why is she concerned and informed about what these baby daddies, she didn't want to be with them. And still she sort of has some indignation, or what's it called? Resentment about what they do with their money, as if they're some kind of enslaved human beings who has to make sure that she's okay. What kind of mentality is this? Where does this mentality come from? Don't you have any empathy for the people you involve yourself with? What about your fucking children? What future are you giving them, woman?
He should pay it because it's housing his fucking kids. I don't care. Split it between the fucking both of them. For all I give a fuck.
Oh yeah, you don't give a fuck. Yeah. Now you want empathy. You want to make a video about damsel in distress, the system and the men and everybody. I don't know. Okay, but you had a system that was set up where men and women get together and create a family and to secure the children. And there's even a wider system locally with other families where they help each other. But no, you had your brain destroyed with feminism, right? You're not it's bad to be a woman at home, right? Well, who benefit from all of this shit? Who are the ones who benefits from this? Because there's always someone who benefits. Well, those who run the system, right? They have perpetual income now because of you, because of your stupid decisions. By bringing government into the fray, bringing government into your family, and to perpetually keeping it destroyed. Now you have put all of these people, yourself, your children, and two men into this system where they are all dependent on this violent entity called government. Because you are trained to not understand that that is what is going on.
Don't pay child support. Maybe you should pay for them to live in a fucking house. You know what? That should be it. Since men across the board, like, it doesn't matter what state, there's a bunch of them that don't want to pay for their children.
They have to be forced away from their children, right? And then they have to be forced to pay for these children, right? It's like you going to buy a car, right? And then somebody comes and say, I have to drive this car 80% of the time. You can get it the last 20, but you still need to pay for the gas, and you still need to pay for the repair and everything every month. But 80% of the time, you can't drive this car. It's sort of it's an analogy, right? Would you think that would be fair in any sense of the understanding? Of course not. Is it any wonder that men don't want to participate in this shit anymore, right? And all this and this euphemism of paying. They should be paying. She's trying to cover up what she's actually doing. She's using the violent control of government to get what she wants. And everybody else has to suffer for it. And the way she describes these men as if they're sort of, I don't care about these men. Men everywhere. Men have to be forced to this, forced to that, right? Who benefits? Everybody in the government, right? Solidifying the control of the population through crazy women like her. That's one of the reasons that women shouldn't vote. And in general, nobody should vote, right? We are all equal if nobody votes, right? If everybody stops doing something, we're all equal, right?
because they feel like they shouldn't have to. So you know what I feel like for someone that pays.
Okay, so you shouldn't have to. So you're moralizing. What's your moral fucking principle? Let me know, right? What's your ontology? What's your epistemology? And so on. Shouldn't? It's sort of the is-ought gap by Hume, right? Where the hell did this moralization all of a sudden come from, right? How did you justify that jump? But you thought that you shouldn't participate in family building and keeping things together. That is nasty to you as a woman. Oh, I shouldn't be forced to do this. But the men should be forced to finance my freedom. You see a problem there, right, woman?
For all of them, they're their entire life all on my own, by themselves, by myself. They eat.
Do you want brownie points for doing what you were supposed to do? Look, if you are too insufferable, if you don't know how to pick a good guy, this is the consequence. If you are so insufferable that the good men run away, this is the consequence. You are.
Yeah, and she has the tattooed sleeve, right? The arm tattoo there. You can see the tattoo, right? So we all men will very quickly understand what is going on here, right? She wants to sleep around as she sees fit and have a baby if she wants to, and then have the government pay for her shit, right? Through the men, enslaving the men to her. And she's enslaved to the government. So men, through women, are being enslaved to government that they don't want. Men want low taxes. Men want to be able to keep what they earn. But women think that they can live in a fairy tale land, being free, while everybody else pays for them, right? You see any problem here somewhere? It's laughable.
Responsible for your choices and pick what you pick, but pay for it. So, you are supposed to pay for your kids if you choose to have them.
More than I.
Yeah. So women want freedom that is dependent on men taking care of them under the threat of violence from government. That's the system we have now. Men are being enslaved through crazy women, right? And there are millions of women like her. She's not the only one. There are millions of them. This is rather the case than not the case, right? Than not cases. They're all nut cases, right? But not in that sense. This is rather the case than not the case. The vast majority of women have this mentality, more or less. That a woman like Pearl is so fucking rare. A woman who can actually say things as they are. At least she's not perfect. I mean, but she's honest about it at least, right? She tries to use the right terms for describing things, except for the very deepest level, her own dogmas, right? Pearl doesn't want to realize that all government is a threat of violence to make you do things that you don't want to do. And what democracy is trying to convince people that they can get less of the consequences, but those consequences are transferred to the minority. So the minority has to pay for the majority. That's the fairness of it, right? That's the inbuilt contradictory fairness understanding of democracy. Democracy will always be, it will be appeal to self-interest. And then these people over there have to pay. And they will be demonized and vilified and so on. The patriarchy, men have to pay, right? Or the capitalists, or whatever it is, some minority somewhere, right? Have to pay for the shit.
Can fucking supply. Like, I should be able to say, fuck you, and they should pay for the house payment.
oh yeah, you should be allowed to say fuck you. But they should be forced to pay for your ability to say fuck you to them. I mean, it doesn't take much of a brain to figure out that this is not something men want to participate in the future if they have two brain cells to move around, right? Or to function. They should be forced to pay for her saying, fuck you, give me money so I can have your children to myself. Is this what was supposed to happen when women got the vote, right? Isn't it the case that it's easier to manipulate women using language, politician, and fear, and strike fear into women and manipulate their brains when they grow up so they can be controlled through government, to arrive in a situation here where everybody around her is sort of chained to a violent system called government, right? I assure you, this whole system as it is has been locked in now, is not going to end well, right? Because these women are dangerous because it's about keeping you hooked into the system, but keeping you dependent on the system. You can't get out again. Now she can't get out of this situation, right? She can't remake all that has been destroyed. Now she's dependent on government. Though she doesn't like the effects of it. Now she's hooked in, but she can't realize that she's the one who fucked everything up. So now she has to go and blame the men and force them even more into slavery and be chained to a government, right? Where will this end other than everybody is chained to a government? Where else could it end, right?
How about that? How about you pay my house payment and I'll pay for the children to eat and clothes and whatever.
Let's get.
So how about you understanding how things really work before you go, right? No, because they can't, because their minds have been destroyed, more or less, right? Childhood is a kind of conspiracy against human beings. And when they grow up, after they have grown up, it's called civilization, right? Childhood is the period where your mind is destroyed. And civilization is what these destroyed grown-ups call what the fuck they're doing, using their government and so on, right? Taxes is what we pay for freedom or whatever I'm paraphrasing, right? For security, for civilization. Taxes is what we pay to have civilization. Yeah, government has to be involved because you have your mind fucking destroyed during your childhood with whatever stupid ideology, right? Okay, I think I got my point across here, right? And it just boggles the mind how far from any. It's just all this superficial shit, right? Underneath all of this, there is a. I mean, just take just to round it off, right? Take the COVID-19 era, the pandemic. How little it takes to threaten people into complete submission, right? It's just under a very thin film of the persona, the outside, the undercurrent going on in human beings. She's illuminating you a bit here. What the fuck is going on? She wants dictatorship now because she's annoyed that she has to hand over all this money that she would like to spend on more tattoos, right? so she can go out and get attention from men. She's not locked down with one man. No, she wants another tattoo and some other eyelashes and nails and and this money. And what could I get for all this money? My money, right? So she wants a dictatorship. The end game is always dictatorship. It's always total control. It always is. We have 3,000, maybe 6,000 years of history. And all that history is about how people are killing each other, controlling each other, manipulating each other. It's all about fucking dying and controlling and dictatorships and massacres and so on. But no, I want government to make them pay. Make them pay, right? Holy fuck, man, right? Okay. Please share, like, and subscribe. Let me have your comment. What do you think about this? And otherwise, see you in the next one.